Welcome, everybody. Just 30 hours from now, the college football semifinal between Michigan and Georgia, the Orange Bowl at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Florida, will be going underway. And it is very exciting for me as a Michigan fan to witness probably the most important game Michigan has played in this century, I'd say, in the 21st century. So, what is to be expected for this game, and how will Michigan stand a chance against a very good Georgia team? Well, let's go into it. So it'll be Michigan against Georgia. Georgia, for the brunt of the season, for most of the season, was the number one team in the country. After the first couple of weeks, they established themselves as a defense first team, very mechanical like actually in the way that they would win games by 4 or 5 touchdowns basically every week, allowing less than a touchdown per game for the entire regular season. The stats are very impressive defensively. There doesn't need to be much to be said about Georgia's defense other than that they're one of the greatest defensive teams in the past decade. And so it's unsurprising that they were the number one overall team in the country until they lost to Alabama in the SEC championship in a game that will go down as a pretty big disappointment to Georgia fans. They were never really in it. Stetson Bennett threw multiple interceptions in the second half when they're trying to come back. They ended up losing that game 41-24, and it hurt them pretty bad, but it only knocked them from the one overall team in the country to number 3. And that's just because of how dominant they were throughout the regular season. Not a single game in the regular season that they played, except for the first game of the year against Clemson, was within a touchdown. And most of their wins were, as I said earlier, by 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, where they were allowing their opponents to score between 3 to 10 points a game. There was just nothing going on. That defensive line with Jordan Davis, the linebackers led by Nakobe Dean, and a bunch of blue chip cornerbacks as well, make this defense very well balanced, but also elite at all levels, especially that defensive line. Really the best run defense in the country, complemented by one of the best pass defenses in the country. And it's going to be tough for Michigan, but Michigan has one of the better offensive units in the country, I'd say. Not the best, but a top 15 offense overall, led by this offensive line, led by the duo of Hassan Haskins and Blake Corum. As you can see on the screen, Michigan's run game has been very strong all year, ranking inside the top 3 in most offensive metrics. Hassan Haskins, 20 touchdowns on the year. Blake Corum, he got injured. He got injured against, I think it was Nebraska, and that hurt him. That his season didn't quite pan out after that. He missed 3 games in a row, and then he came back and he was on kind of a carry limit. But in the games he's come back since then, he had that 70-plus yard touchdown run against Iowa, and he's averaging over 6 yards a carry. So he's still very elite, very explosive. And Michigan's run game with that offensive line, that's the matchup to look for in this one against Georgia, whose defensive line is truly special, led by Heisman contender Jordan Davis, but not just Jordan Davis. They've got a lot of studs on that defensive line. You've got just massive dudes, massive guys ready to pounce. And Michigan's offensive line is one of the few in the country, I'd say, capable of at least battling and forcing that defensive line to create some holes, to create some separation for Haskins, for Corum, and for others, such as Donovan Edwards, our true freshman running back, who has kind of broken out recently. Had the 10-reception game for 170-plus yards against Maryland. In the Big Ten Championship against Iowa, he had a 60-yard throw that was just dime to Rowan Wilson, where Michigan scored a touchdown. And he's a really good third back for Michigan to have. He's a very good player. He can catch out of the backfield, and he's the type of player that can change the pace of the game with just one series of him being in the game. Because he's not going to play for too long, but when he plays, he's a playmaker. And that's what Michigan's offense really is. It's a lot of different guys that are not maybe NFL caliber players, but that can make plays, such as here we have, who is that? I'm not even sure, but such as Cornelius Johnson, Roman Wilson, obviously Donovan Edwards, Hassan Haskins as a running back, he's a tank, Blake Corum, and a lot of other guys. Andrew Anthony had that huge game against Michigan State. So this is a team with a lot of players who can make plays. AJ Henning is another guy. And the defensive side of the ball, as you can see there, that's Daxton Hill. These corners are really solid. Daxton Hill, status is up in the air for tomorrow's game. Obviously, he's potentially has COVID and didn't make the trip down to Miami, but even if he's gone, Brad Hawkins, Vincent Gray, and the linebacker core led by Josh Ross, obviously the defensive line led by end rushers, David Ojabo, Aiden Hutchinson. This is a strong defense, a top 10 defense in the country, top 5 defense in the country, in my opinion, that has gotten hot at the right time, held Iowa to 3 points, held Ohio State to under 4 touchdowns, is really strong on every aspect. When coming into the year, I didn't expect Michigan's defense to be very good, especially after last season where they were below average Big Ten defense and really not getting a ton in terms of recruiting coming in. So I think the big pieces took jumps. David Ojabo took a jump. Aiden Hutchinson took a huge jump. And the corners have really held their own against some of the best offensive teams in the country, against Ohio State. So this team, especially against Georgia, whose offense is, I don't want to say subpar, but definitely not at the same level as Georgia's defense. That's where Michigan can actually get some stops, I think, with our defense and make this a slugfest where, as you see, Hassan Haskins and Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards can do some damage and potentially make this game interesting. I think this game will be close. I don't see Michigan blowing Georgia out just because the offensive style of Michigan is run heavy and the Georgia defense is very dominant, not just against the run, but against the pass. So I don't think Jim Harbaugh's going to ask Cade McNamara to do too much, but I do think that the defense will be good enough. And Georgia's offense really isn't, in my mind, elite. It's very good. It's very good, no doubt about that. Stetson Bennett's underrated. George Pickens got back. He's their top receiver. And then Brock Bowers is their star tight end, who's really a great player and potential first-round pick in a couple years in the NFL draft. So they've got playmakers on offense. They have Zamir White, obviously, a great running back, bulldog running back. And they have good playmakers, well-balanced offense, mechanical. But Michigan's defense is capable of stopping or at least containing that offense. They contain Ohio State, who I believe is a much better offense. So I think that Georgia's offense will be held in check by Michigan's defense. And I think this game will come down to the fourth quarter. I think it'll come down to who can make plays in the fourth quarter between the two quarterbacks. I'm not sure who that winning quarterback will be. J.J. McCarthy might get in, might have to make some good plays himself. I'm not sure if Cade McNamara is at that level, but I think he is. I think he can give Michigan a chance in this game. And the prediction I have for this one is Georgia 27, Michigan 21. It's not that I don't think Michigan has a chance. I do think there is a great chance. I do think that Georgia's offense or defense, I should say, is just slightly too dominant, and it's a little better than Michigan's. And Michigan's offense is not explosive enough to crack that defense too often, especially if Michigan gets behind. That'll be difficult. Same can be said for Georgia's offense. If they get behind, that'll be interesting to see because this is not an offense that thrives from behind. They've been up in most of their games all year, and they run it, and they're not as comfortable behind. I mean, Stetson Bennett made some really bad decisions against Alabama. He had the pick six he threw under pressure. If Ojabo and Hutchinson get pressure, I could see Michigan winning this game if they get consistent pressure because that'll make Bennett throw bad balls. That'll give Michigan's offense good position on the field. And if we can do that, we can win the game, win the turnover battle. I think Michigan has a chance. But if this game plays out with a neutral turnover ratio, both teams generate the same amount of turnovers, or neither team generates any turnovers, I see Georgia's definite favorite. I think 7.5 points, which is the line, is too much. But I do think Georgia should be considered a favorite, and my prediction reflects that. I think Georgia takes this one 27-21, but Michigan has a real shot to win this semifinal and get to the final against either Alabama or Cincinnati. I think that'll be Alabama in that final, and I'm excited to see what happens tomorrow. Go Blue.